reading from a section from A Course in Miracles, the manual for teachers, and in that there's a very important description of sort of the levels of learning by one who would choose to be a teacher of God in Course in Miracles terms, and this is the development of trust. And it talks about 6 more or less arbitrary periods, okay, beginning with a period of undoing, second, a period of sorting out, third stage, period of relinquishment, and the fourth stage, which would describe, I think, Louis's position at this time after the trauma of India, called a period of settling down. I'll just read you from the Course. This is a quiet time in which the teacher of God rests a while in reasonable peace. Now he consolidates his learning. Now he begins to see the transfer value of what he has learned. Its potential is literally staggering, and the teacher of God is now at the point in his progress at which he sees in it his whole way out. Give up what you do not want and keep what you do. How simple is the obvious, how easy to do. The teacher of God needs this period of respite. He has not yet come as far as he thinks, yet when he is ready to go on, he goes with mighty companions beside him. Now he rests a while and gathers them before going on. He will not go on from here alone. Describes well what Louis is encountering as he returns from India, traumatized, realizes that all he wants is to have a quiet life, a peaceful life, very happy to move in with Suzanne in Plymouth, Minnesota, suburbia outside of Minneapolis, and plant a garden. Suzanne, the space there's a sort of a double lot, and so one half of the property is a good size, about a quarter acre, that Louis convinces his wife to allow him to develop this into a garden. And it occurs to Louis that he would enjoy learning more about gardening and landscaping. So he takes a class in the local community technical college, a class on soil. And right away, Louis is hooked. He's like, wow, I want to learn about this. I want to learn about plants. I want to learn about gardening and landscaping, and so he does. It really becomes his obsession that he wants to turn this quarter acre plot into a garden, into a sort of a more than a garden, really, a landscaped oasis. And he decides then, because he has this, name, of course, always in his brain, that he would use this name Oasis to describe a small business that could be a way he could earn an income. Doing the design and development and maintenance of he visuals sort of like a backyard oasis for any clients that he would do some similar, like what he's doing in his own property, using stone and simple wood constructions and plants, maybe a water feature, create an oasis. And so this becomes his deep devotion, not so much the business, but his own project, which he would put a full 10 years of his soul into. And it was really quite remarkable. I'll attach a photo or two of the project to the video so you can see what evolved over a period of years. And one of the things that was interesting to Louis was to do this in a way that was simple enough that anyone could do it, not, oh, a rich person could have a garden like this, but more or less anyone could do it. And how he did it, which would be rather extreme. Obviously, most clients wouldn't choose to do this themselves, but Louis did it all himself. All the materials that he used in his project was all scavenged, all the stone, all the wood, all the plants even. He found ways to scavenge plants from local nurseries that would discard diseased or damaged plants, and he would bring them back to health. And Louis worked a few years in the business with other companies to learn arboriculture, to learn some things about nursery, plant development, and whatever. It was a big shift in his life because he had never really had a career. And so he saw for the first time, now in his early 40s, a way to have an enjoyable career. And it was very enjoyable in the early years, again, when he was in his training and then working on his own. Later, when the company became bigger, it was sort of an evolution that Louis did not really want, but he allowed it to happen. Just more work than he could handle by himself. Some projects that involved heavier physical labor than Louis wanted to do by himself. So he eventually acquired a couple of employees through this program at the university where Louis could host these agricultural students from other parts of the world would come to Minnesota for the summer through this agricultural program, exchange program with the university. And Louis would have them for the season, which in Minnesota is about 6 months, maybe 7, where you could work outdoors, would run this small company, Oasis Distinctive Landscape Services, I think it was. Anyway, that's another story. The main thing, of course, was that Louis was going to spend this time sort of consolidating his learning. And, he was deeply involved with the Course in Miracles, deeply involved in AA, 12 steps. During this period, if you look at this period from 1993 to 2005, he would study Dr. David Hawkins, Carolyn Mace, Eckhart Tolle would come into the picture probably around I think he published the Power of Now in '99. So anyway, this was a great time for Louis too. He's hunkered down in Minnesota, developing his garden, really just allowing his soul to be at relative peace. Oh, also another piece was, of course, I'd mentioned the New Warrior group that Louis got involved in doing some special weekends locally with men, and then he developed this idea to do this Vision Quest work, taking men on a 10-day Vision Quest adventure out in Montana, and that would be what would occupy a couple of weeks each summer. In early August, he would leave the heat and humidity of Minnesota and go with a group of men out to Montana, to the Beartooth Wilderness. I'll share more about that next time. I wanted to focus today really on the garden. And, Louis was making a distinctive shift in his journey where he was keenly interested in developing his feminine. Again, in his connection to the earth, Louis had always been much more, in his journey thus far, much more masculine, in the sense that he was focused on his studies, on his intellect. And like I said, India really kind of shattered the dominance of his intellect, because his brain really went through a very big trauma and never functioned quite the same again. But that was a good thing, because what Louis really wanted to develop was more of his feminine aspects. And his marriage was part of that. It was part of this expression, being involved for the first time really with a woman in a long-term relationship. But that really wasn't the true focus. It was actually more developing this inner feminine. If he was developing his masculine king, he was also interested in a process he called calling for the queen, which really was calling for elements of his own divine feminine to integrate within the masculine, so he would eventually become a whole being. And this was really probably what this 12-year period was mostly about, would be the development of the divine feminine within him. So when in Course in Miracles it talked about mighty companions, you could see that there was this development of the relationship with me, the Sun King. And of course, I'm probably overall the guiding force in his life, but he was calling also for the queen. Okay, so or perhaps in the Chinese astrology, Louis was born under the sign of the dragon, and actually the water dragon. So it could be that you could say that if the Sun King was representative of his higher masculine, that water dragon was representative of his higher feminine, and that balancing the energies of both of these would be what would ultimately bring him into his wholeness.